My goal today at the top of the show was to look at what is something that I maybe we haven't talked about enough, whether it was in the post game show on Saturday or yesterday, something that we haven't necessarily covered as opposed to rehashing anything that we were doing yesterday. And one of the things that I came up with was this LSU running game, combining Jayden Daniels, the offensive line, which has been shuffled back and forth, and then the running back room, which is now whole, essentially. You've got John Emery back. You've got Noah Cain. You've got Armani Goodwin. And then obviously we saw the big run from Josh Williams there for the touchdown as well. Your thoughts, big picture, on where this running game is right now and where it can go, because I think we kind of now have the best feel we've had over the last 6 weeks as to what the personnel is going to look like.
Yeah, I think for me, they're definitely going to get better. And I think that's something you kind of saw last season, even with that coaching staff we had last year. But I think you get Emery back. And I think the biggest thing that we're not noticing right now, Anthony Bradford, I think I want to see him at that right guard position with Emery Jones at right tackle. And I think it's definitely going to bolster your run game attack. That's something that Bradford does at a high clip. And to me, I think Armani Goodwin's getting a lot more confidence. Williams is getting a lot more confidence, and those guys are running hard, man. And so anytime you got guys running hard and you got a guy with like Emery who has big play potential, I think it opens the world up for your run game. And that's not even mentioning kind of the yards we never count. Yep. And that's Jayden Daniels' yards that he's going to eat up week in and week out. And so I think at the end of the year, you're going to have sneaky rushing attacks when you think this rushing attack isn't, Penn State, or it isn't, some of these other teams that have some of these great rushing attacks. When you add in Jayden's ability to run in there at the end of the year, you're going to tally up a lot of yards.
Look, they got Armani Gooden going a little bit against Southern, and once again, the caveat we have to use every single time is, yeah, but what does that mean? And the honest thing is that it means nothing. But what did it mean that he had a nice go of it against Mississippi State? I think that does mean something, and he is finding a little bit of a role and maybe gaining a little bit more confidence. The game might be slowing down a little bit. He was in and out of the lineup last year with injuries. Now he's healthy. And that last touchdown that he scored running away from the defense, one, it was between the tackles, which was really nice to see. This is a guy we think of as getting to the edge, making guys miss in space, maybe catching the football out of the backfield. Between the tackles, made a nice cut, got up the field, and he ran away from SEC defenders. You run away from Southern? Okay, you probably should. Run away from Mississippi State? Okay, that gets my attention a little bit. And so while I still don't think he's a guy that you're going to give the football to 26 times in an SEC game, like we saw last year with TDP against Florida, I think that he maybe is a little more versatile than I had imagined. I still want John Emery to be the guy who touches it the most as a running back, but Armani Goodwin did some good things over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he definitely has. And I think looking at him in that Florida State game, not the same guy you watched in that Mississippi State game, just it seemed like in that Florida State game just kind of ran, took what was there. If it was blocked for 2, he got 2 yards. But he was breaking tackles in this Mississippi State game, and that's something that's huge. And obviously you talked about the big-time run. That's huge as well. And as a younger player, those type of things give you a world of confidence week in and week out because you know you can do it. Your teammates know you can do it. Your coaches know you can do it. And it gets to a point where they depend on you to do it. So I think for Armani, that's a guy that I think should split the touches with, Emery and kind of, let those 2 guys be the bell cow. And I think for me, Williams, he does such a phenomenal job in the pass game, blocking and catching the ball. I think he has a role in the running game as well.
So this is something you brought up. I didn't notice it in the first game, but you definitely brought it up, and I want to echo it. If Josh Williams gets carries, and you look at that as a fan and say, why don't we give that to Emery? Where's Armani Goodwin? Here's the deal. They have to give him some carries because he's such a good pass blocker. You can't just put him into pass block so they know that you're going to throw the football. The threat of him running it has to be there. So even if they think there may be a better option on the ground, you can't get so predictable by personnel because you got your best pass blocker in there and he's only in there when you pass. You have to have the threat of running the football.
100%. I know this firsthand. My first 4 years in the NFL, me and Giovanni Bernard, and we had to do that delicate dance every week. When I'm in the game, are we just going to run it? If Gio's in the game, are we just going to pass it? And as an offensive coordinator and a coaching staff, you have to do a great job balancing that because the great coordinators, they're going to make you pay for it. You never want to become predictable. That's something that we watched this football program last season just really get L with. That's kind of the thing that kind of loses you football games. And so they're going to have to give them carries as much as you want to see some of those guys get the ball. You got to mix it up. You got to keep the defense on their toes.
As far as Jayden Daniels goes in the run game, if you look back over his time at Arizona State and as a full-time starter in 2019, he ran the ball for 355 yards, an average under 3 yards per carry. Now, there's sack yardage in there, but he never ripped off a really long one. His long run of the season was only 27 yards. He had a longer run than that on the first play of LSU's season this year. But 125 carries. The COVID year, they didn't play enough games, so that doesn't do as much. But last year as a full-time starter, 138 attempts for 710 yards. He doubled up his yardage in just a few more carries. 125 carries his first year, 138 yards in his third year. I don't know whether to call him junior year, sophomore year. Like, there's a COVID year that doesn't count. Yeah. His third year as the starter, he only ran it 13 more times, but doubled up his yardage and doubled up his yards per carry and ran it for 6 touchdowns. We didn't know if that was because he had time to throw and had some really solid receivers that first year and was more willing to throw the football, or if it was a part of his game that he just kind of unlocked moving forward, that he did want to run it a little bit more. Now you look up through 3 games, he's going to be running a lot.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I think you can pencil in. He's probably going to be this team's leading rusher. Obviously, you obviously got the design quarterback runs, but every time you drop back to pass, that's an opportunity for him to get more.
Could be a run play.
Yeah, so pretty much it's a run play, and he's running it on some of the pick plays. He's taking those down and running in just little 1-yard flat plays. He's scrambling those too. So I think for me, I at the start of the year before the season started, I thought that could be a big issue for me. But just watching Jayden out there, you can tell why they gave him the start. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. You got to take the good with the bad. And so if he's going to be helping you in the run game, I think this rushing game, if you take Jayden's yards out of it, it's going to look very, very bad. So he's got to help you out in the run game. Obviously, there's going to be some guys open down the field. But if he's not turning it over, I think you can live with that.
So early in the game, in the first half against Florida State, pretty much all LSU was doing was Jayden Daniels dropping back and taking off. I mean, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but it's not a lot of an exaggeration. That was the majority of the production on offense was just him taking off. Mm-hmm. And then I look at the drive that they got on LSU on the board for their first touchdown against Mississippi State, and almost 70% of that drive was him dropping back to throw and running. There are really athletic guys in the SEC on defense. Mm-hmm. Linebackers that can go, safeties that can go, even the ends in some of these teams can run. I don't know if the ends can run with Jayden Daniels, but some of the linebackers and some of the safeties can. I just wonder how often he can do that until you determine, okay, and this is oversimplified, but as somebody that doesn't get the X's and O's, so I want your opinion on it. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're never letting him do this. I'm not gonna rush the passer. And I'm going to have a spy on him that's fast, he's going to have to throw the ball. At that point, you're not trying to take advantage of LSU's offensive line, which is all part of this X's and O's stuff. But if I'm a defensive coordinator, he ain't running that often. I'm just not going to let that happen.
Yeah, and that preseason, that was my biggest fear. I'm like, look, if Jayden's just going to be pulling it down all game, you've been there. You watched those 2 seasons with Johnny Manziel. What did we do? We mush rushed him. He said, look, you can do whatever the heck you want to do in the pocket. Look, have your fill, have a blast, win the Heisman, do whatever the heck you want to do. But the second you start to try to break that pocket or scramble around, we're just not letting you have that. We're going to make you beat us from the pocket. And so I know Coach Denbrock, I know Coach Kelly, they're beating it down Jayden's throat that, hey, man, we got to get you to make these progressions. You got to get the ball out. You got to get the ball to your weapons. And you have to, because, any coordinator with the brain's going to know they're going to look at that box score and say, just get at 100 yards this week. 100, we're not letting that happen this week. We're going to mush rush you. We're going to spy you. And if you want to get a good idea of what that looks like, go back and watch Lamar Jackson's first game in the playoffs. He's playing the Chargers. They run 6 DBs that whole game. They just kept 6 DBs on the field. They spied them. They had speed everywhere, and they kind of just took that out of it no matter how fast Lamar was. And so I see as the season goes on, they're going to make adjustments, and teams are going to make adjustments. To me, Mississippi State didn't do enough of that. That's why Jayden had so much struggle in the first half. That's when they were much rushing him and spying him, and he really wasn't able to take off for the yards he was in the second half. And so I think that's something they're going to have to fix, because the good guys, they're going to take that away from you. Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. See you next time.